back to a couple of years ago. What were you doing in the fall of 2019? What was your life like? What did you care about? What did you most fear? What did you imagine about the future? That's the person I would like to speak to for the next few minutes, and I'll start with my own story. In the fall of 2019, as Vincent said, I was a professor of ethics and ancient philosophy. I taught students critical thinking and the importance of self-reflection, how to ask good questions and evaluate evidence, how, in other words, to think for themselves. Fast forward to September 16th, 2021, when I received a termination with cause letter after I questioned and refused to comply with my employer's vaccine mandate. I was dismissed for doing exactly what I had been hired to do. I was a professor of ethics, questioning what I take to be an unethical demand. You don't have to look very hard to find the irony. The right to determine what shall or shall not be done with one's own body, and to be free from non-consensual medical treatment, is a right deeply rooted in Canadian law. Those aren't my words. Those are the words of Justice Sydney Robbins of the Ontario Court of Appeal. The right to be free from non-consensual medical treatment. In 2019, could you have imagined that this right would no longer be respected in Canada? Could you have imagined that it would be taken so swiftly and so easily, or that so many would give it up with so little fight? With the removal of these rights, Canada is no longer Canada. It is something new, with a new leader. A woman's right to her own body is no longer an overarching concept. Now employers are holding us hostage by threatening to terminate us if we don't submit. And when we don't, when we say, I'm Canadian, and the law protects my right to say no, they're firing us anyway. They're removing our participation in the economy and in public life. Their justification is that we're in a pandemic, and we must therefore give up the rights to make decisions about our own bodies for the sake of the public good.
Lies.
So let's talk about autonomy and the public good for a minute. In emergencies, the Parliament and provincial legislatures have a limited power to pass laws that violate certain charter rights for the sake of the public good. But to justify violating our rights in this case, vaccine mandates would need to meet a very high threshold. COVID-19 would, for example, need to be a highly virulent pathogen for which there is no adequate treatment, and the vaccines would need to be demonstrably safe and effective. The current state of affairs in Canada meets none of these criteria. COVID-19 has an infection fatality rate less than 1% that of smallpox, and it poses even less risk to children. A number of safe, highly effective pharmaceuticals exist to treat it.
Yes.
The vaccines have reported more adverse events than every other vaccine on the market in the last 30 years.
Sure thing.
In light of these facts, I have many questions. Why are the vaccinated granted vaccine passports and access to public spaces when the director of the CDC has stated that the COVID-19 vaccines cannot prevent transmission? Why is vaccination the only mitigation strategy when emerging evidence, including a recent Harvard study from September of this year, shows no discernible relationship between the vaccination rate and new cases? Actually, it shows that the vaccinated are causing the rates of COVID, if anything. Why does our government continue to withhold ivermectin as a recommended treatment when the U.S. National Institutes of Health supports it, and when the state of Uttar Pradesh in India distributed it to its 230 million people, reducing the COVID death rate almost to zero. Why are we about to vaccinate 5-year-olds when COVID poses to them less risk than the potential vaccine reactions, and when there is no effective monitoring system with which to construct a true safety profile of the vaccines?
Right.
Why are we focused on the narrow benefits of vaccine-induced immunity when real-world immunity is more protective, more potent, and more enduring? Why, as a nurse recently asked, and I know you've heard this before, but it's so good, her question is so good, why do the protected need to be protected from the unprotected by forcing the unprotected to use the protection that didn't protect them in the first place? By every measure and from every angle, this is a house of cards about to crumble. But the question that interests me is, why hasn't it crumbled already? Why aren't these questions the headlines of every major newspaper in Canada every single day? Our Prime Minister is now leading a battle cry. Don't think you're getting on a plane, he threatened. Campaign promises are now segregationist public policy. Our government is molding us to be divisive and hateful. How did things change so suddenly, so drastically, so easily? How did we Canadians change so much and so quickly? It is my observation that we are facing a pandemic, not just of a virus, but a pandemic of compliance and complacency in a culture of silence, censorship, and institutionalized bullying. Mainstream media likes to say that we are fighting a war of information, that misinformation and even questioning and doubt have plagued the pandemic. But it is not only information that is being weaponized in this war. It is a person's right to think for herself. The wars of the past have had, clear and distinct boundaries. The East and the West, the North and the South, the patriots and the government. The war we find ourselves in today is one of infiltration instead of invasion, intimidation instead of free choice, of psychological forces so insidious we come to believe that the ideas are our own and that we are doing our part by giving up our rights. As a wise colleague recently said, this is a war about the role of government. It is about our freedom to think and ask questions, and about whether individual autonomy can be downgraded to a conditional privilege or whether it remains a right. It is a war about whether you are to remain a citizen or become a subject. It is about who owns you, you or the state. It is about where you draw the line.
Yes.
I have a question for you. Where is your line? Losing your job? Losing your access to planes and trains? What about your hockey rink? Your doctor's office? Your gym? Your mother's funeral? Your right to vote? Where is your line? Is it inching closer and closer? Or have you crossed it already?
It's right here.
At what point will you stand up and say, I am Canadian and this is wrong? This isn't about liberals and conservatives, anti-vaxxers, pro-vaxxers, experts, and lay people. Everybody should care about the truth. Everybody should care about the scientific and democratic processes. Everybody should care about each other. Today, the vaccinated seem to enjoy all the rights and privileges of a civilized society. Freedom of movement, access to education, and the approval of governments, lawmakers, journalists, family, and friends. Vaccination is it's a ticket to our conditional return to our rights to participate in Canadian society. But as John F. Kennedy said, the rights of every man are diminished when the rights of one man are threatened. I have absolutely no doubt that COVID-19 is the single greatest threat to humanity we have ever faced.
Yes.
But not because of a virus. That is just one chapter of a much longer, very complex story. And it's because of our response to it. And that response is, I believe, earning its place in every medical ethics book and textbook that will be written over the next century. So what can we do? That is ultimately the question, right? What can we do about this? As Canadian author and chemist Orlando Batista wrote, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to accept it, until you refuse to correct it. In our world, getting along, getting by, flying under the radar seem to be the goals. Gone are the 60s revolutionaries, gone are the patriots of early America. We are the victims and the soldiers of a pandemic of compliance. The dismissive and well-rehearsed messaging of our government has created a highly efficient machine that does not publish its evidence or engage in debate, but only issues orders that we obligingly follow. With the help of the media, its mistakes are hidden, its policies unquestioned, its dissenters silenced. What can we do? How can we break this silence? How do we get our country back? We need to get a little bit noisy. In fact, we need to get an awful lot noisy. Studies have shown, if you have an academic speak, you're going to hear about studies, right? Studies have shown that once an idea is adopted by just 10% of the population, that is the tipping point when ideas, beliefs, and opinions will be rapidly adopted by the rest. 10% is easy. There are already more than 10% of us who have refused the vaccine, and there are many more who oppose the mandates. We just need a vocal, a noisy 10%. That is all it's going to take. This is far enough. This is my line in the sand. As Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Every single person who is standing up, whoever you are, wherever you are, however small or afraid or alone you feel, is making a difference. Yes! The Southwest Airlines pilots are making a difference.
Yeah!
The University Health Network nurses are making a difference.
Yeah! Yeah!
Dr. Killian is making a difference. Corporal Danny Bulford is making a difference. And every single person who has ever fought for this country so that we can be free on foreign lands, in the air, in the sea, every single one of those people has made a difference.
Stand up, Canada!
And every one of you here today, for being here today, is making a difference.
You're making a difference.
We need heroes now more than ever. Our democracy needs heroes. Will you be a hero? Will you be part of the noisy 10%?